Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing great today. Today, I'll be talking about Alchemy of Souls, Part 2, not Season 2, but Part 2. Just a quick, first off, though, let me get my thoughts straight here. I'd like to thank the 1 and 2 of you be watching this video. Hope you appreciate it. Leave your comments below on what you think about Part 2 of Alchemy of Souls. Did you like it? Were you disappointed? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? And why? Just a quick recap on how Part 1 ended. Part 1 ended with our girl Mudok, or Naksu, the same person. Her secret was found out that she was a soul shifter, and so our bad guy there, Jin Mu, I believe is his name, he found a way to control these soul shifters, and he kind of rang some bells, drove her crazy. She started doing a mass murder, killing everybody, and in the end, she starts to turn into stone, which happens when you go crazy as a soul shifter. Her body got thrown into the sea. She killed her love at the same time, but he was resurrected by the ice stone. And, excuse me, we got a cough. Still got a cough. She's thrown into the sea, but she was brought up, and we find out beginning of Part 2 that Lee, the herb guy, the guy who takes medicine so he can't have an erection, I guess you could say, him and the Jin woman, the leader of the one that has the cave of secrets, they help resurrect Naksu, but when she comes back as Modiuk, or the daughter of the Jin family. I know I'll probably not pronounce that right, but anyways, comes back as the daughter of the family, and with the warning that when she gets all of her memories back as Naksu, that Naksu's spirit will disappear and she'll become the eldest daughter of that family. So that's basically how Part 2 begins, and it's basically more of a romance show, definitely from this point on, because she doesn't have any of her memories. She meets up with our hero, Jae-wook, and he's kind of cold and hot with her for most part, because he was deeply in love. He's still heartbroken. By the way, Part 2 takes place 3 years after Part 1, so he's still heartbroken over, what happened to Mudok. But during this Part 2, they start to form this relationship once again, fall in love together, and she starts to remember everything, and then it's basically her somewhat trying to convince him that she's actually Naksu, or I'm not going to pronounce the other name because I can't. Naksu is easy to pronounce. The other name I can't do it. So Part 2 is really heavily into the romance. Part 1 was heavy in the romance, but you still had some good fighting scenes and some political maneuvering. But Part 2 is just all about their relationship and them trying to get back together. They get married in the beginning, and kind of like a push and pull kind of thing, where he kind of pushes her away, but then he starts to have feelings for her, so he brings her back. It's all about their complicated relationship. Very little to do with any of the villains and their scheming, and very little fighting in this part, in the Part 2, which I was kind of disappointed, because when you watch the trailer, you look like you're going to be in this great action type of a TV show, and it's basically a romance with fantasy in it. Heavy romance with a little fantasy in it. The first episode of Part 2, you get a lot of what I was expecting. You get him fighting these soul shifters who's gone wild, and you think that's what it's going to be about. But no, it's just about those relationship between those two. Just like in Season 1, I believe like the CGI, the special effects, is really good in this season. The acting was really great. Even the romance that they write is real well written. But really though, Part 2, to get down to it, doesn't really bring anything new. It really should have ended with episode 20 of Part 1, because there's nothing really, like, the villains are still bland. They don't bring anything to the table, because the first 8 episodes are all about our two leading male and female characters and their relationship, and every once in a while they'll throw something in with the villains, but they're not doing anything. They're not trying to improve themselves. Jae-wook, the leading character there, he's like almost practically invincible, so they're not even trying to stop him from coming up a way to defeating. All the scheming that they do is at the very end of this series, and it's only for like, I don't know, very short period of time, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Really, I mean, it should have, because part 2 don't really bring anything new. It should have ended with episode 20 of part 1 with that relationship and stuff. Instead of having her go wild, it should have been able to work together to defeat the villains. Because the villains really are not, I mean, I don't know. It's just, they're very weak in this one. And we don't even get like a good satisfying fighting scene, at the end. We don't get any conflict. Like, everything's resolved too easily. Really, I mean, really too easily. There's no trouble. Like, the only thing you're concerned about is whether if the main characters are gonna die or not. If the 2 leads are gonna die. And that's the only thing that's really at stake in this part 2 is how they're gonna make it where these 2 can survive, or they're just gonna kill them off. So personally, I think part 2 is like unnecessary. This should have ended up with part 1. Like I said this a few times already in this 7-minute video. Part 2 doesn't bring anything new to the story. Don't get any new enlightenments. They try to bring in like a Firebird type thing and a prophecy there, which was a non-existent in part 1, but they brought it in part 2, I guess, because they felt like they had to bring some kind of fantasy conflict, but it was so unnecessary and so easily resolved. I don't know. What else really to say? Kind of disappointed in part 2. I was expecting a little bit more. I was expecting like the villains to like gather their forces and come up a way to defeat people, defeat the good guys and stuff, and then you would have your romance be like your second tier. If you watched my videos of this show before, the heavy romance is something I was really dissatisfied with this series, just because it wasn't my expectation. The trailers made it look like it was going to be this great venture thing with lots of magic being played out and fighting and stuff, but it's just a hardcore fantasy romance show. And I probably can understand, they probably didn't have the budget to do all the special effects that they would need to do with that kind of show. But they didn't. But, you could at least have a little bit more of scheming going on. I'm going to say word scheming. So overall, part 2, I guess I'll recommend it, because you have to watch it if you watch part 1 to see how it ends. Overall, the series, if you're new to the thing, which probably the majority of you are, I give my reviews just have like 3 grades. We have highly recommend, which majority of people I feel will like it. Recommend, 50-50. Recommended caution is people who like bad movies. You know who you are if you like bad movies. That's probably how we do it. And I'm gonna recommend. I'm just going to give this a recommend, but a barely recommend because of the false advertising. But if you like romance, this is a show for you. You like heavy romance with a little bit of fantasy, this is you. If you like somebody, I like romance if I'm expecting romance. I wasn't expecting romance, but I'm going to say, I just recommend, if you're wanting a lot of fantasy, magic, sword fighting and stuff, part 1, you get pretty good deal with it. Part 2, not so much. So you probably want to enjoy it. I would recommend, but barely recommend. Barely, just a tad. Anyways, that's my review. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening to me ramble on. Leave your comments. Do you agree with me? Do you think it was too much romance? Do you like it? Do you think this is something that you would definitely tell people to watch? I wouldn't tell everybody to watch this. I would have to, like I said, this is probably 50-50. I would have to see if I knew the person well enough to know what their likes and dislikes of a TV show is. That's the only way I would recommend this. But anyways, that's all for me for today. Have a great day, and see you tomorrow. We're gonna do a talk about live. What was it? Action violence or something like that. I don't know. Something kind of title like that. We'll be talking about that on my next video. Something totally different from this. That's for sure. Have a great day. Bye.